Hello, everyone. Let's give a couple of minutes. Hi, everyone. We start in 1 minute. Hi, everyone. Well, let's start. First of all, welcome again to Impact and to this call. So, good afternoon or good night for someone's. Okay, let's start this. Okay, today we're going to talk about mobile continuous delivery. Okay, you can also post on chat if you're listening and seeing everything fine. So just so I don't present to the space alone. Okay, everyone. So I've given my introduction already, but what I would like to highlight is that I'm a Meteor software engineer as of now, and I've been a long time native specialist developing Objective C, Swift, and Java applications for native mobile devices. I've worked with Apple Developer Academy, having really proximity with Apple guys. So that kind of made me study the guidelines for Apple. So uh, that was when I knew what the shoulds and the don'ts for Apple App Store. So that's what we are going to talk today. Okay. So let's try to recap. We are going to talk about mobile continuous delivery. And for starting, we are going to start with the flow. That's the standard flow for native mobile development. So you develop a new feature, and then this new feature has to go to the app stores. They had to get to the client's hand. So your users need to get your new feature because it's a really good feature. It's a new feature. It's going to bring you money. It's going to monetize your app and whatever. It's a new feature. You have to get that. Okay, then you have to at least submit them to the App Store and then to Google Play. But when you add it to the App Store, it can take over 12 hours today. And I'm being really optimistic about that because right now Apple have taken a turnabout on this review times. But back in the days when I was developing native apps, it was 1 week of review time. So today we are blessed of having more than 12 hours, and it's a really good review time, getting historical data. But back in the days, it was 1 week of review time. So you develop a new feature, you send it to the App Store, and then it would take more than 1 week, or today more than 12 hours, to show up in the client's store. And the same goes for Google Play, but Google Play is way faster, but it's still more than 1 hour. Sometimes you get lucky and you get a half hour review time, but mostly I would say it's 1 hour in the mean. Okay, but that works fine. But and when you submit your new feature and your perfect app stops working, crashes, out of memory, and whatever, apps crashes, that there are bugs, and it's not the only flow. It's not only releasing new features. There's also a flow about releasing bug fixes, and almost always when there's a new features there are new bugs, but there, the thing here. But what I want to say is there are two flows. You have to submit new features and also fix bugs. But what is the flow for submitting bug fixes in this native world? So you develop a bug fix, you get time investigating it, fixing it, and then you deploy it to the app store, and then you have over than 20 hours, 20, and it's a lot of time, 12 hours, sorry, of waiting time for that to get to the client's hand. But yeah, the app is not working. You have pushed something that is broken. Mostly App Store reviewers will get it if your app doesn't open or crash at the opening. But if you have a more subtle bug, like if the user goes logging in with a certain role to a button and then this button crashes the app, they are not going to get that into review. And this can happen. So you can still leave the app broken in our client's hands for over 12 hours. That's a lot. That's a lot. And also on Google Play, over than 1 hour. You're not getting anything less than that because it's a bug fix. They don't care. It's just an update, and the update has the same priority as everything. On Apple, just mentioning, if you have sent a lot of apps to the App Store, there's a thing called an expedite review when you can submit a form for Apple and ask them to be faster reviewing your app because it's something that is padded review, and it calls for immediate action. Like it's an event that's happening in 2 hours, and I need this bug fix out. They can or they cannot listen to your plea. So most of the times they ignore you, but sometimes they do an expedite request. And yeah. Okay, so what I would like to talk is about this metric is mean time to recovery. So let's say you have a disaster going on, like a bug, a really bad bug. And what is our mean time to recovery? Okay, in a good scenario, it's going to be 12 hours. But that's not the only thing that will make your client update the app. It's not just release the update to the App Store and then all apps are going to be updated automatically at the same time, instantaneous. No, that doesn't happen. So your update gets scheduled, and then the OS is going to decide when your update should be applied. And that happens almost all the times at Android and iOS at sleep time when the user is idle. Okay, so yeah, you just lose your client. I think it's a pretty uh, overall history here. So you had a disaster going on, and then you can't recover from it because it's your mean time to recover is too high if you just rely on native updates. Okay, so you are just desperate because there's too much time, and your client's going to run to to uninstall your app. So that's one of the causes that apps uninstalls happen because of ANRs, the application not responding on Android. Crashes are less common on Apple, but they do occur. But yeah, I think the solution, and Meteor also thought about that and thought that the solution for this native flow is that we have to get code to the client as soon as it's ready. So you develop a new bug fix, you need to get that to the client as soon as possible. As soon as it's ready, the release flow should be a barrier for you to get the code to the client's hand. Okay, so that's what Meteor HCP came to solve, and HCP stands for Hot Code Push, and we are going to talk some about that. Okay, so just an overall here. If you don't know, Meteor use Cordova for generating mobile apps, and then here in this talk, we are going to focus on Cordova and hybrid apps. So Cordova are generated in a native package like APK and IPA for Apple. So they are native apps. The flow is exactly the same. Nothing changed in the stores. You're not being going to be prioritized because you're a native app or unprioritized because you're a Cordova app. It doesn't matter. Okay, so talking about hot code push on Meteor. For Cordova, we have a Cordova plugin called Cordova Plugin Meteor Web App. So what is this? This plugin is going to manage all the assets that your app depends on. So it downloads assets and decide which asset to serve based on your app version. Okay, so in this way, you can still get updates to the clients even if they don't update your app because you're going to update your assets, but the app is going to be the same. Talking about Meteor web applications, we are talking about JS, HTML, JSON files, CSS, and image, and whatever you want to serve. These assets download is going to happen. So Cordova plugin Meteor is the one that orchestrates that native thing inside the Cordova application through storing assets like downloading new JS versions, new CSS versions, and also serving the assets. Okay. So when you generate a new Cordova application with Meteor, Meteor bundles a first version of your code when you build it. Okay, so you generate your APK that's going to work even if you don't have internet. Like I'm doing a simplification here. There are a lot of things happening here, but talking about assets, your app that's just built with Meteor doesn't need internet to work because the asset is embedded in your native application. That's the difference between a native application and also PWA because it's just a web app talking about PWA, but with native, you can have these things embedded. So you don't need internet for it at first. Okay. So the Cordova plugin is not the only part of Hot Code Push. It's kind of intrinsic process, but I will try to go over some overall details here. But what happens is when there is a new client version, when there is new code deployed to your Meteor application, it updates the subscription called Meteor Auto Update Client Versions. So this is something we'll see later in this call. But when you start a new Meteor application, like if you go to Galaxy and then inspect the subscriptions we are doing, because Galaxy is a Meteor application, you're going to see this subscription. This subscription is the responsible for hot code push because this subscription, the client is listening to this subscription, to this publication, sorry. And when there is a new version, it's going to be warned about in this publication. Okay, it's going then, if it's a Cordova process, going to pass that down to your Cordova plugin through native API. And then the Cordova plugin is going to download the new assets version and then to start serving them in the next call. Okay, so we are talking about the client versions, and if there is a new compatible version, and I've highlighted this for a reason, we'll talk more about that in the next slide. But it's really important to be a new compatible version. There is a package called reload that's also present in this our orchestration here. You are talking about a Cordova plugin, we are talking about a publication, and we are now talking about the reload package. This publication subscription lives in the auto update package. So just so you know, we are talking about three packages right now: reload, auto update, and then the Cordova plugin meter web app. That's a Cordova plugin. Okay. So if there's a new compatible version that was received inside the subscription meter auto update client versions, the reload package is called, and if there is no register reload on migrate method, this method here, the application will reload with the new version. This is the default behavior of Meteor. This is the default behavior of the reload package. Okay, it's going to receive the new version. If there is a new compatible version, it's going to pass that down to the reload package, and then the application is going to reload with the new version. So your code was just sent to the client immediately. You push a new version, and that version gets to your client immediately without having to go through all the stores and all that mean time to recovery thing that we have talked about right now. Okay. And what is cool about that is if there's no registry on migrate callback, the default behavior is called. But this is the gotcha. You can customize these actions. Okay, but let's talk about the Cordova plugin first. So for iOS, we run a local web server that's right in Swift native code. And this local web server is what is going to serve all the assets you need. So when we build a Cordova application, Meteor puts a local web server into it to serve the assets, and then for letting you to work with Hot Code Push. Okay, so always when a file is requested from the WebKit, from the WK WebKit, inside iOS Cordova. This is going to pass through the local web server from the Cordova plugin, and then it's going to calculate the assets and see which asset is from the right version and serve that to you. For Android, it's almost the same thing about managing assets, but we don't have a local web server running. We just intercept URLs and remap them to the file system. But just so you know, this is going to be a good source of information for the future. Okay, so we're talking about new compatible versions. So we're talking now about Cordova. And just so you know, Hot Code Push also works for web. So we are going to focus here on Cordova, but Hot Code Push is a way to continuously deliver your code for web and Cordova. And it works almost the same way, except from the specifics. We are talking about Cordova plugins and this thing called Cordova compatible versions. This doesn't happen on web. Okay. So, what is a new compatible version for Cordova? A new compatible version is when the Cordova compatibility versions manifest is the same. Okay, the server has a client code, and then the client has its own code. What the server is going to do? It's going to compute a hash that's generated based on the Cordova platform version, the list of plugins of your app, and its versions. So this hash that is formed from all this information is going to be in a manifest. And then the client, when it receives the version from the subscription we have talked about, is going to compare. Is my version equal to the version, to the compatibility version in the server? If it is, then it's safe to update the code so we can switch versions. But what if the Cordova platform version changed? If the Cordova platform version changed in my update to the server, then the Cordova compatibility versions here is going to be different. Then there's a new hash, and when the client, that's a Cordova app, checks with the server to see if the versions match, they are not going to match, then Hot Code Push is not going to update to that version. Why is that? That's a safety measure to avoiding updating to a JavaScript file version that calls native APIs that are not present. So let's talk about the list of plugins. Let's say that your main application, your main core of application in the first version didn't have anything related to camera. There is no camera plugin, you can't take photos. And then you develop a new feature that's going to take photos. And this feature depends on the Cordova plugin camera, right? And then you push that to your server, expecting that hot code push will work. But it won't because the list of plugins, of Cordova plugins, and its versions have changed. Then the code is not going to be updated because of that. So in your code, you have to be careful about that. We are going to talk more about that later. There is a way to override this Cordova compatibility versions. So if you want to do more advanced stuff with hot code push, so like I said, it's a safety measure. But let's say you are a really experienced Cordova developer and you know that your code has a lot of ifs and safety measures inside accessing all Cordova plugins. So you're not going to access the Cordova plugin native API before checking if it is there. You wouldn't need it if you went with the full Meteor configuration. But if you override this Meteor Cordova Compact version, you can even hot code push when there is a change in the native overall building. Like if there's a change in plugin, if you set this Meteor Cordova Compact version, there's a flag for Android and iOS when building the server and also when building and running the client. Okay, you have to pass that before building and before deploying. If that is set in stone, like it's not going to change even if you change the list of your plugins, then you have to be sure that no code access native libraries that it doesn't exist. Okay, that's the gotcha here. You can override this, but it's a safety measure, and most cases you don't need this, but you might need it if you want to use hot code push to the maximum. Okay, there are some considerations to do about hot code push, and we're going to say it right now. So let's suppose you have an app and your client is using your app to like type a text, and then you send a new update. Okay, like we said, the default behavior is to reload. And if you don't customize that, it's going to reload. And if your user is there typing, the app is going to reload. I can even imagine what is going to be the rage of your customer with you if they were in the middle of a long test typing and they refresh their application. Okay, so be careful about that. Don't use without knowing. And what I'm saying about custom strategies is there are at least two that are most known for me at least is the reload and resume. On Cordova, you can detect resume events, like when you get your app in the background and then you go back to it. This is a resume event. Okay, so MDG reload on resume will only update your app when resuming. So it will not refresh the page while your client is typing a text. Okay, so this is one way to solve it. The other way is using quad reloader, or you can even use your custom solution. Just the package are here, for example. So reload when the app allows. So this is just something you are going to check. You are going most of the times you might want to show confirm dialog to your client and to your user and see if they want to update right now. So like this, I know it's in Portuguese, but here is saying there's an update available. Do you want to update? It's fast. And the buttons here are later. And okay, so this here is a real application hot code push that's right now on Play Store. I've just opened my app after like a long time without using this app. Oh, sorry, without using this app, and I know the dev team is pushing updates. Okay, so I opened it even after not updating this app because there is another gotcha about relying on native updates, is that if your user stops using your app, they are never going to get an update. Okay, so the OS prioritize most used applications first to get updates. And this happened. I opened the app and it prompted me to update, and everything was working. Okay, and this is using Quave Reloader. Okay, it asks the user so they can say, okay, I want to update. It's fine. I'm not doing anything important right now. Go ahead. You can see that behavior also on WhatsApp web. If you have saw that there's a small update button that shows up from time to time there. A lot of apps do that. Okay, so there is one gotcha about this, is that Apple does not allow in-app update dialogues. So the screen you just saw, you can't let that show to Apple reviewers because it's against the guidelines to show this to new users. Okay, never let an app version that will show the update dialog in review when sending apps to the App Store. Okay, there are guidelines about signing and all that. I don't want to get into that stuff, but it's a rule inside it. So don't do that. So the most safe solution would go with reload and resume. That's just resuming the app from sleep. But that's your call. It's your app. So just make sure you don't get caught. So when using Hot Code Push, you have to keep API compatibility. And this is really important. It's a point that most developers forget to do, even when working for a long time with this. Using Hot Code Push and even using any native things, your client is not always going to have the most up-to-date version at any time before doing a server request. Okay, and if the user still has the old code, the app can crash. Like here, we are going to see this version one meter method. So let's suppose in the first version of your server, you have defined the update user method, receiving only the parameter user ID. Okay, and then you ship this to Cordova, and Cordova calls this method. Everything works fine. User ID is passed. You can update user, whatever. And then let's say that you decided that this update user should receive an options or the first option as the first parameter. Okay. Uh, yeah, out of nowhere, there's a new feature inside this method. I want to do more things inside this method, and I saw that the signature is not good enough, so I'm changing. Okay, I'm changing because web is going to refresh at the same moment because of hot code push and everything is going to work, and I don't need to worry about it. But that's not true. If you are using Cordova, a user can still have the old code, or because they have a slow internet, or because there's a how can I say that? Okay, let me rephrase. I lost my point here. The user can still have the old code because the internet can be slow, everything can go on. Can also there's also the option to have issues when downloading the new version to the Cordova app. So let's suppose you are in an event and this event has bad Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi is not only bad because it's slow, it's bad because it keeps losing packets, and there's a lot of errors in this communication. If you download the assets, they are compared using hashes, and if they are not strictly and exactly the same, our Cordova hot code push implementation in the native side is going to discard it, and it's only going to accept sane versions. Okay, so in this case, when they have bad internet, they can still make requests to your server. So let's suppose you have released the first Cordova with this V1 signature, specking this V1 signature, and then your server updates, but your client doesn't, and then you try to call the update user function. What is going to happen? I don't know, it might crash, it might not work, might not have the right response. But for sure, what we need to understand here is that you need to preserve API compatibility. So if you have a core of applications, don't ever go changing parameters, changing signatures. Like I could have removed this update user function, but that's not the right way to do. You might need to deprecate it, like create a new update user v2 or something like that, and then use that in the client. And when there is no other clients in the old version, you can change it back. Okay, so just be careful about that. Okay, there is also another consideration that people tend to forget, that is release to the stores as soon as possible. Otherwise, users will face app reload when initiating the app. Okay, so let's say you say to me, yeah, it's showing me this hot code push and everything's so great. I'm not ever going to submit an update to the stores. Yeah, that's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is use hot code push and still so doing updates and increments to the app store. Because what if you don't have the reload and resume or any other package? When the user opens your app and the version in the store is outdated, what it's going to do is going to receive a new version, check that this version is compatible, and it's going to update it right now, refresh right now, just when the user installed the app. So what is going to be the reaction? Uninstall your app, okay? Because that's the first thing you do when that app refresh itself after opening. Okay, so don't never let that happen. Always push updates to the stars. Okay, so another thing that we want to talk is how can I do that? So I need to deliver with hot code push, but I still need to deliver to the stars. But it's a pain there. So delivering to the stars is really, really bad. So if you have done that, the native world is really not the same as the web, because web is really great, everything works. But in the native world, you have Apple that uh, that they are dictators in their stars, which is fine because they are the owners. But you have to follow the rules of Apple, and inside Play Store you have to follow Google rules. So they change things every time. So if you are a fastlane developer, if you ever met someone from the fastlane team, be sure to give them a hug, because this is one of the best piece of softwares I've seen, and it's really hard to keep it working, but they do. Okay, you might have used fastlane, and then this week it worked, and then the next week the same version you were using is not working anymore. Okay, it can happen because Apple changed things a lot and almost every week. So, but Fastlane developers have a really good job keeping up with that change. But what Fastlane does, Fastlane helps you build and release your mobile apps to the stores, having that pre-configured, and even get to a Jenkins or a Travis or any other CI that you want. But you don't need to go to Safari, open the iTunes Connect, submit a build, fill a lot of info, fill forms, and all that stuff you have to do if you are going to update or upload manually your builds. Okay, even for Android, it's like really paying less for Android, but for iOS, you have a little job to do. But yeah, use Fastlane to continuously deliver to stars. Don't do it manually, because you're probably going to say, it's too much trouble. I'm not going to send this update. But with Fastlane, you won't have that skills because it's really easy. Okay, so what is my what I think is a great setup for continuous delivering to the stars? What I really like to use is a Jenkins machine that runs in a slave inside Mac Stadium. And what is Mac Stadium? Mac Stadium is a Mac as a service. Okay, you pay them, and then they boot up a new Mac machine for you, and then you can control it and use it with graphical interface and CLI as you want with SSH and all that stuff. So why do we need Mac Stadium for building for iOS? Because iOS can only be built on uh, Apple machines. Okay, and then we also have Amazon EC2. Right now, they are also spinning up Mac machines. As far as I know, I haven't given it a look because I really like Mac Stadium, but you might want to check it out. They are spinning up Mac machines right now too. Okay, but you can also spin up a Linux machine to build Android. So this is my, I would say, like a dream setup, like having a Jenkins job that you just play it. And then this Jenkins job, what is it going to do? It's going to build the Meteor application, and this build is going to generate the APK for Android. And also it's going to generate the Xcode project, and this Xcode project, and then this APK is going to be sent to the stores with fastlane. Okay. Sometimes you might want to build iOS and Android inside a Mac station to save time because it's a machine that gets idle sometimes, or you can even do it in your machine manually. And sorry, okay, I forgot to add a demo slide here, but I will show you guys how simple is a fast lane setup for Android. Okay, here we have a real production app that is set up for continuous delivery for the Play Store. Okay, we just set the package name, the APK that we're going to push, and there is this Google Play JSON file that have some credentials for letting Fastlane upload to the Play Store in our behalf. There is the Google Play settings, like just this. There's you see that we are in a long line here, but all the lines above are for iOS, and you have to do some setup for iOS. But don't worry, for Android is easy. So at least get our Fastlane set up with Android, and you can worry about iOS later. Okay, and talking about what is my build script here. So this is what I will do, or I would do if I would set up a Jenkins job. I would call this script, call it build, and what this do? This app just called Meteor build. Okay, there's a lot of options here. The Meteor compat version that we're talking about is going to remove the safety thing for Cordova plugins. There's a lot of things here, but mainly it's just a Meteor build and passing a server host. This is all you need. Settings, of course, if you use settings, this is all you need to build a Cordova app for with Meteor. And then with this, what this gives us, it gives us the workspace for the iOS. You can open it on Xcode and build it from there. Or you can also use Fastlane. We're going to talk that in a second. Okay, and for Android, Meteor is going to generate an APK, but this APK still has to be signed and aligned. Not anymore in the versions of this is kind of old script. I haven't updated it yet, but with Meteor 2.5, zip align is not going to work anymore. You have to use APK signer only. It's going to align everything. So there's a few subtle difference here. But just so you know, you have to align and sign the APK. That's for all Android applications that you have the APK. You sign it, and you have to have a Android key store. You generate Android key store. Before that, you can do that on the Android Studio or in the command line. That's your call. Okay, and then after building, after signing and aligning, you have the APK that's really uh, ready to go. And then what you do, you call Fastlane supply here in a platform. You define the fast file and define the Android, the location of the APK file. And that's it. That's it. Fastlane is going to ship your APK to Google Play. Okay. I think that's a really nice way to set up your. And there's also a thing that I use it to do. There is also snapshotting, screenshotting on Fastlane. So Fastlane is a really cool tool too, so you can use it in partnership with Meteor and Hot Code Push. Okay, I think I've talked enough already. I know this is not an exhaustive talk. I'm not talking about all the points and everything from Hot Code Push. If you want to know more, you can reach me out personally, or you can also check our docs and guides for Meteor. There's a lot of content in there. But what I want to say with this talk is that Hot Code Push is a really powerful tool that cuts your time for delivering code to your users and your mean time to recovery from a disaster is really uh, diminished. Okay, so it's really something that's going to get you code faster to your client. Okay, and also Fastlane, also keep delivering native updates to the store. Never forget about that. Use Hot Code Push, but always send native updates to the store. Okay, guys, I'm open to any questions that you might have. I try to read the chat right now. So if you have any questions or anything, you can post it on chat. Let's check on Zoom. Check can't do. Felipe said in the package readme, there is an example explaining how to have exactly the same feature. Yeah, yeah. You can go to the package, to Quavio Reloader package, and it's going to show you exactly how it's done. It's the same example. Okay, guys, no questions. Thank for your time. Thanks for listening. And if you need more time, let me know. Thanks, everyone. Oh, there's one question here. Let's wait. Do you know of any talk stores or implement Fastlane and Jenkins? Yeah, I've seen some, but I don't know any source on the top of my head here, Adrian. So I can try to paste them here, probably on files. Okay, in the examples repository. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of info. I think Felipe is the one that compiled a lot of Cordova info in there. I think there's Fastlane there too. Felipe, if you do remember, please share the link here. Yes, exactly. As Felipe remember. Yeah, there's this link in the examples repo. Felipe will share with us as soon as he find it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, there's a lot of info there. Also, Fastlane. Yeah, publishing the apps. I think this is the section. If there isn't anything talking about Fastlane and Jenkins, I think we should include that. So I'll get a to-do list here. So yeah, Jenkins code. We can share all this info with you. Sure, I'll take a look at it. Thanks for asking, and thanks also. Thanks everyone. If you have more thoughts, let me know. See ya. Thanks for watching.